Lesra. Penanzo Juan Chamanya, China Riju Chilechira, Sangam Natsayo, Bobo Momo Juba Chidua. Thing on that sent to the Henry Chada, Karina Karichi Lagira. Chini Zamzang the Dile or color. Sangam to be Jiji, and Zulunti Pegas on Ra. The Zugi Chamanya, the Nan Zamzalun to shoot him pedal, and on the Sangam 2 years and do. Bedukora bed das Sangam never the chain me, Parabara 2 do. Chicken mission budget, Drado, Long Shitchen, Dardam cottage do. Mission budget chilagi with Sona Lejo do. Tendam leader. The summer touchy the same as your land, the Maradra. Annie wanted any rejuven where, Annie Joa to be where. Annie and Zamzachi Nedan Dujatni, by me the color chicken, motor, Dungasho, and the Shinasa or Ton, the same two doing. Tendam later. You know, Mambojing on the same game. So,
Marcorangitio did it. Nanzudaina era. And this summertime Kuga Bioras. Susonamdo Jitunjo Jela. In a Samkang, the Nebajina, call us Kanyada era. And the Nanzoida Koranla, the Gesheba Jurim, Tedilla Nanzuki Samchiche Yungoras. In a Samkam to the Niki Kanyajura. Te answera, Kuranginamdo Gituncha Rebel and Tio the Tiger.
Just a two shed they need Linda. Two dignity, two egg Juje. Tambokola mat Chatan Damner. Ra. Kashi Tambokoran Jua Tuni, Natalia Chica, two dignity like that. And a chigni rejugulia chiche. Chigni, Shinas hold, they don't Shinas hold in the tongue of Tenny, cause number 2 there. Tenny Mamuja.
So, herein, it is important to understand we do not make a blanket statement that all of our suffering comes from our mind and that all of our experiences are experiences of suffering are created by the mind. And this is important to understand because, for example, even when we look at mental health challenges, mental disturbances as we call them, then it is important to realize that there are many causes and conditions which can give rise to such mental disturbances. Now, from a very traditional classical Buddhist outlook, we are explaining it from that point of view. For example, many of these things can be hereditary. This could be many of these kind of mental health problems. In some cases, could be hereditary. That's one. Two, now, when we are talking about health, mental as well as physical health, from a traditional Buddhist perspective, these two are very interlinked, interconnected. So as such, our state of mind can also be affected by what we call the constituent elements of our body. So if there is a disturbance in the constituent elements, we talk about an imbalance in the wind energy, an imbalance in phlegm, in an imbalance in these other constituent elements. So if there is imbalance in these constituent elements of the body itself, then this also shapes our experience and our response to experiences. For example, when there is an imbalance in the wind energy, people have an imbalance in their wind energy, then it might be that they give more easily into anger. And so much so that they always get the impression that they are surrounded by enemies, surrounded by risk all the time. So that comes from an imbalance in the wind energy in the body. Then similarly, these mental disturbances can also be triggered by outside external circumstances. For example, a disaster, an accident, and so forth can trigger mental disturbance. And if you do not come to terms with it, then it stays, this same disturbance. So there are many factors which can contribute to mental disturbances. So this is important to also understand.
Zamdania didam. Chi sosuchibu dedra. Parudla chi tak sosu sama tombaro chiga. Rewaja sa khan mi juro chi chani. Tong chi kala ta bedkoran sosu dromi kejang ji lan. Ra. Dani senta wo jamatnya dinde chudunida. Damandra.
And then similarly, now when we say that many of our experiences of suffering are shaped by and influenced by the mental state that we are in, then we are looking at the manifest form of reactions that we are inhabituated towards. For example, when we look at the manner in which we lose purpose in our lives, we begin to feel hopeless, and as a consequence of that, we begin to feel alienated, and then we drive ourselves into isolation, and then this also affects our mental state too, wherein we become disturbed immediately, or even at all times when we begin to feel alienated, helpless, empty inside.
Tanto shora. Ni tanto ta chin te bari gomuluru sanjara da chin dari gana chitang anzo chin dari toni do dan tende de shagdo dan anzo chin chuji in le kari gi du na ani shije gi du ba dan yomo bi du ba da shije gi du ba du dio chitang khora ra shi gi so tende chile ko do ra tende indi ta tele te ba la di gala ta digi telang ha ba do te ba la ta digi chechu de yende do ra sha ra
ta tanda de la chuji england ta na chuji ing di zo di lokorang la loirang shin de la sha
no ra shi ta ba ra.
So now we'll move along with the text itself. Now when we look at the title of the text, it reads, In Praise of Dharmadatu. So it is important to understand what exactly is Dharmadatu. Now in simple terms, Dharma refers to phenomena or things in plain terms, and Dhatu refers to its true nature, to the basic space in which it exists, its true nature, its true quality. So more particularly in our discussion, we will explore it through the lens of emptiness. Now, if we are to explore it with the lens of emptiness, then it is important that herein, when we are talking about Dharmadatu, we talk about not the true nature of phenomena outside of the mind, but we are looking at the mind itself as the phenomena. So as such, the Dharmadatu that we explore here within the lens of emptiness is explored through how the basic quality of the mind is light clear, or clear light. Now, even though in the handouts that you have, it doesn't specify, it actually starts with this line, as all classical Tibetan texts do, in the language of India, and then it states the name of the text in the original Sanskrit, which is Dharmadatu Stoa. And now this, I think, is also important to appreciate the manner in which the ancient Tibetan classical translators always make it a point to begin a text that has been translated with this particular remark at the start, that they make it a point to acknowledge the source of the teachings. Thus.
아니 다 벽이 끼데 추지 인스 컬러 추지 인스 때바스라라 다 단다 신이 때바라지 아니 저당 다 히바라시 요세와라라 다네 다데나 파파 잠베 주는 지발라 샤츠로라디다 제든 잠베야나 샤츠와라 저당 간다 샤츠와들라 지 룽아 예순 거는 샤츠여라
Now, the first two lines of the actual root text seems to be missing in the handout that you have, but I'm sure many of you who have already attended such courses before understand the purpose and importance of the first two lines, wherein it begins with "in the language of India" and then states the name of the text in the original Sanskrit, and then it begins to say "in the language of Tibet," and then it's translated, the title itself is translated into Tibetan. And now after that, there is a verse which is an offering, which is a verse of offering, and in this handout it doesn't specify, but the verse of offering in this particular text is I prostrate to the youthful Manjushri, or homage to the youthful Manjushri.
다된래다 강시건데 마시나 아스라 강시건데 마시나 시바송도 남바 코르스 심젠건라 녜네비 최진이라 샷질 되스라 다 단다 강시래디 이시를 고고다 강시 있을 건데 예시건데 마시나 된대위다 파이 대신반에 지로디 츠티운데라 변 콘서쇼 가르선나 단다 디컵다 만주 참말라 칸 대화시분 힘부여 받던 그랬으라 온디지 다 된대위 아니 만주 칸 대화시분 힘부도 된대위 가서 우리 예시디 아니 라마트 하마고와이나 아니 시바손 나바고 당한저 시바손한테 칸즈 칸라 칸다 시바손다 시바손도 콜랑한저 콜량스양스 코데오래라 단 회게 단다 딜라 디샤이도 회진 지된라 시바손라디 회진 지된데 아니 양도 코데요 라 참데바 근데 콜라 내리고 왔는데 지에된 거라서 아니 심전 거라 얘네 배래디 된데 위쪽이 심전 라 쪽이 심전디 아니 내주 거라 얘네 배 아니 추진이라 해서 다 단다 가르려 오잖아 지당 가지고 된데 위 간 대화시비 힘보도 쓰기 다 가로다 에 라트비곤티 야 하코비곤티 이게 그 디비션이 디비전도 파 셈마도 보통 가서 간다
Now we look at the first verse, and it reads, "There is something which, as long as left unknown, results in life's three planes of vicious circle. Beyond all doubt, it dwells in every being. To the Dharmadhatu I devoutly bow." Now, when the first line says, "There is something which, as long as left unknown, results in life's three planes of vicious circle," this something is what we call primordial wisdom, or now in simple words, this something is wisdom, the wisdom of wisdom. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that this wisdom that is being referred to here actually refers to what we call the Tathagata Garbha, or the heart of the Buddha nature. And this, unless and until sentient beings do not realize this wisdom of the heart of the Buddha nature within themselves, then they continue to incontrollably cycle in samsara. And these three planes of vicious circle herein refers to the three realms of samsara: form, formless, and desire realm. So unless and until sentient beings do realize this wisdom that exists that exists within themselves, in the nature of the Buddha nature, heart of the Buddha nature that exists in themselves, then they continue to cycle uncontrollably in samsara. And beyond all doubt, it dwells in every being. To the Dharmadatu. Dharmadatu now herein refers to the basic sphere of reality, the very innate nature, the true nature. And now, more specifically, the Dharmadhatu herein refers to the basic quality of consciousness itself, the basic quality of mind, the basic, the true nature of the mind itself being light clear or luminous. Now, why is it the case that sentient beings are not able to realize and actualize this true nature, this basic quality of the consciousness? Because the consciousness or the mind is obscured by the afflictions. So herein, we talk about two types of obscurations: afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations. So if we are to actualize and realize the heart of the Buddha nature within ourselves, we have to overcome our afflictive obscurations as well as cognitive obscurations.
Di tep di ende shimba de coffee de mula imde.
You can have this.
Tubara.
Volume with remote. Yeah, get this chair Dallas.
Sunga.
Yeah. I will project my voice now. Get this chair this.
Okay. Hi. Yes. Jana di this travel do dara. Yeah. Daine dang di che ani.
The young teacher. Because of this, there is disturbance. Yeah. Maybe we can do without this. I'll try to be as loud as possible. And if it still doesn't help, then we'll make use of this. Yeah? Yes.
Oh, that's the color. Tadi jitangi Thosamling gomzo chene lobu yitima de sego watanga di shilo shambadi wa tende ani kanshi kowe juju ba le ta kanshi tende chin kanshi le de chin lo koyense ani kowe juju ba le de kasna lobu yitima de ra lobu yitima de nganzo tanda kwala khodi de wagi nganzo lo kwala le ni ta kala lobu yitima timegi dude ba le tene nganzo kwala khodi ra juju ba Teni Jangbe lady, Teni lady, Tendevi, Lopu Timadu, Ani Kariki Jangon, Langiba Mebaso, Lamchi, and the Timad, the Kari Jangon, Janja di Timad, Tangazu Chigi, and you do the Shidula Sopara, Jamba Cheba Les, Tendevi Shidu, Kanda Karik Husana, Duba Papa, my Dunipamba Latene Esra, Ani Tapa Teni, Yangin the lady, Teni Chuji Srati. Tapa teni yangin de ladita chujikula teni to ladita tendevi ani karas chugungu du jutu adara tendevi ta duni ba tasona ani sanji goban thayala subara o tendegi ani junju gores tende insa tende chujik teni la as kas chujik ya teni tos teni sanji goban thasana de chukusana re ta kanda kan dewashi himbola wasana re.
Now, moving on, the second line, the second verse, when that which forms the cause for all samsara is purified along the stages of the path, this purity itself is nirvana, precisely this the Dharmakaya too. So, as we now understand, this Dharmadatu resides in all sentient beings, and as such, it is only the case that when we continue to cycle in samsara, this Dharmadatu becomes obscured by the afflictions. The afflictions and the obscurations are temporary in their nature. And now, when the second line says, when that which forms the cause for all samsara is purified along the stages of the path, as we already discussed before, when that which forms the cause for all samsara refers to the two obscurations, cognitive and afflictive obscurations, is purified along the stages of the path referring to the stages of the spiritual path, and in more particularly herein stages of the path refers to training, what we call the three trainings. Now through the three trainings of wisdom, ethics and concentration, then one begins to purify and overcome these obscurations, both afflictive and cognitive. And when one is able through training able to purify it, then this purity itself of the Dharmadhatu, free from advantages, temporary stains or temporary afflictions, temporary obscurations, is itself nirvana, liberation. And this purity itself is Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya meaning the truth body that a Buddha, that an enlightened person achieves at the moment of enlightenment and liberation.
Tandi shilo somebody kazana ane timegira chin meton pernasle pe shadi kazana ra timegi dudis na chin yang da baton mares pena pe condition cheta oma tangde pe sara tende pe na karishana oma dang and mari den dedi ra cheta oma tangde pe marjin himbo meton himbo mardi tang zogi tanda chin do jile pe shan ra tende pa dibdi ni marthon matu esuni Oma dan radio in so Oma de kasna diba doj la peshane Oma da di marji den radio de kala mar sebu thon thon mara ti na shen ge teshen nyomo tan de pe te de nyomo Oma na shen ge nyomo di ani ngazi chui de radio in so chui di sebu thon thon mara es teshen nyomo tan de pe ani chui ji inja mudong os la da zamza pe gan la ser ro da tenda kaje kale khaw
So now at this point, it is totally justified when you begin to question why exactly is it the case that we are not able to perceive this Dharmadhatu within ourselves? Why is it the case that we are not able to realize this Dharmadhatu within ourselves, this true nature of the mind? Within ourselves. Then the third verse, with an example, explains why is it the case that we are not able to perceive and realize this true nature of the mind, or this Dharmadhatu. So 3, as butter, though inherent in milk, is mixed with it and hence does not appear, just so the Dharmadhatu is not seen as long as it is mixed together with afflictions. So when you haven't churned the milk, even though the butter that you get from churning the milk already exists, the quality of the butter already exists in the milk, but when it's not churned yet, you do not see the butter at all. So similarly, when we ourselves are consumed by afflictions, then we are not able to perceive and see this Dharmadhatu within ourselves.
Chesa ngaran sole chuji ye deba de la khari du de tende nyomon bu du ba de shege du ba dip de ba insa ngaz se thong ngaz le ye ba ina thong ma pena mar din na kharo ma de na mar ye ba ina ma da wa ma ni de ta chi machine da khade kha ma sa pa ngaz thong de mda tin shin chi ba re la ora.
So similarly, just as we are not able to see butter in the milk, even though the quality of butter exists already in the milk, unless and until we churn the milk, we do not see the butter. So similarly, unless and until we overcome the obscurations, both afflictive and cognitive, then we would not be able to perceive and see the Dharmadhatu which resides within us.
That chiloga shivadi kalasna chita oma nam jang pe slede ta oma da ma ni phaka chen ra oma di phajang wa che phata ba che na ani mar himbo timi injure la di tende mar du bi du chi oma di pha ana tende tima di phata do digal ta khandam oma di dikas tima la pe shane tende ani oma di pha me ba so na ani mar di thong thu re la timi injure 대신 녀모난 샴베라 대신 가라서 라저기 녀모 봐라 녀모도 손다 딱 한다 된데 말이 봐도 좀 잡아이나 아니 주인인데 드민지선 된데 주인인데 아니 세시 딱 봐. 드마미 베라시지 무슨 통통이 된데 차도래스라.
And then now moving along, the fourth verse. And just as the inherent Buddha essence, when the milk is purified, is no more disguised, when afflictions have been completely purified, the Dharmadhatu will be without any stain at all. So when we begin to churn the milk, then the butter becomes manifest at that point. We are able to see the butter at that point. Then similarly, when we overcome our afflictions, when we overcome our obscurations, then this Dharmadhatu also begins to appear to us without any stain, free from obscurations, free from afflictions.
Ngaba dikala na chidangi simjingi nego sistema chitara tanda dikala denzengi timala shagda tanela da chitara mami phuna nela di chitara mami phuna la dende mami nganzu chitara mami chumi phiyejura dende chi phumba ro jing thu ro jin shawa inna le sare sonsa chitara phuna ne chunse hawa minjuro dende chi kongkong ro jin mami dende ji shashana mami de nganzu sebu thong ma chitaya yo ma khasana ko dibji di bom바로 된게 드디 호라 된데 인자 아니 마미 디세부 통 무투바 나신기 대신 녀모 봉나네라디 된데위 아니 칸 대화시비 힘부디 아니 bom베기 주주 끝네 된데위 아니 칸 가서 된데위 춘이디 아니 녀모가 나라 팀되어이나 아니 쓰세우 통 무투바라 최지 인자 메통올디 된데위 녀모디 bom바로 지 주시한테 디나로라 팀되어이나 아니 아주 춘이 세우 통통무다스 다 간다 디컬로스나 아주 그 춘이디 denzengi do dewana danze do do dewana chuni de sebu thong marasla.
Now moving on, the fifth verse. As a butter lamp that burns inside a was would not even be slightly visible as long as left inside afflictions was, the Dharmadhatu is not visible. So herein it is touching upon what we call the basic quality of the consciousness being clear light, luminous, and how we are not able to realize and actualize this. So similar, as a butter lamp that burns inside a was. So if you put a butter lamp which actually offers luminosity, which actually is clear in its nature, and cover it with a was, then you cannot expect the butter lamp to illuminate its surrounding at all. Its illumination, its luminosity is now covered by the was. So similarly, when the Dharmadhatu, when the true nature of our mind is obscured by our afflictions, more particularly now we are looking at self-grasping or innate conception of the self. When our true nature of the mind is stained by the innate conception of the mind, then its true nature is never visible to us.
No.
Repeat.
When you're grasping the innate nature of mind, the true nature of mind is
Self. Now, when we are unable to perceive the true nature of our minds, true nature of the mind, herein referring to the Dharmadhatu itself. So we are not able to perceive the Dharmadhatu that resides in our mind when our mind itself is stained, contaminated by that innate conception of the self, that grasping at the self.
Tadini tubadi karasana ra tubadi lamchi tu inde kostengda lam tu salam juba asata the lam tu zangata chik salam ge toba nyamslen la gura tende je kodi ani shone kanda nes pumba puga techirpa tedan tei shoni ne yeji rangshin Juan Jirele, the Ruan Jira, Tila the Kalana, Penangazo, taking a tender Karsana, Marmido, any Pumbado in Chushana, Setu Marlara. Takesi di Pumba de Lan, Sakaro, then Chiki, Ugundo, Puena, and the Pumba de Karsa, Mami, you the Setu, Pen, Shone Kantaka, the Pumba Takaranda Gina, and Pumba, Puga, la Ugundo Soina, Tena Tei, Shonine, Kaka, Ugundo Situina, Tina, and usage tone, hello, ra, Ujeranse, Tonjura, the Kanda, Chigi, Nalusa de la New de la Chawa, that Ugundo Sua Keo, the Nina, taking a little tone to her.
Now, moving on, verse number 6. Then this talks about how we can gradually begin to actualize this true nature of the mind, this luminosity of the mind, this clear light nature of the mind through our spiritual practice along the spiritual path. Now, if one perforates the surface of the vase, whatever holes are made in whichever directions, through those and in precisely those directions, light will shine, as it is as its nature too. So now, many people talk about certain experiences wherein you talk about a sudden realization of true nature. Now, this is not exactly the case. You might begin to get glimpses of this true nature of the mind, this clear light nature of the mind through your practice. It is not the case that you immediately begin to realize, directly perceive this nature immediately at one go, as this clearly states that if one, still sticking with the example of a lamp that is kept inside a vase and how its luminosity, its nature to illuminate is constricted because of the vase. Now, if one begins to punch holes in the vase that covers the lamp, then the light begins to shine from those holes that you have punched. And in exactly that direction, the light begins to shine. So similarly, through our own practice, through our own training, if we are able to overcome the afflictions, overcome the obscurations, then in our spiritual experience, we begin to get glimpses of this true nature of the mind.
Pumba tenil chakol news. Ketsan tende tingin zig doji di pumba pumba karlana tende nyumumbe pumba di pa chawa ra. Nyumumbe pumba tapena tingin zig goma ina ani tende ranjik nyumumbe ka shiwa lawa toto shet. Tende ba shiwa inza ani tetse teni nanka ista tende wiki tingin zig doji di ani pumba ro di pa chawa ina ani pumba pa chasa di kala digi pumbe gala nanka le anzo kari ina thongya ra. Tese teni nankai thatu parto hawa chela digala tagi pumba di chawaina ani pana chitaje chtontuya kora dinde ma din nalo la mami chama tontuya tende cha dina shengi tende itingi zigi doji digi ani ron nyum rajo nyum ba to be shiwa cheba pacha ta cha ga che ma da khada me ba so ina ani digi kazna manzo gi chugi indi ani pa session tapa ra nanka ya tapa la digala sebu thong ke chera ni thatu parto hawa chela digala.
So, moving on, the seventh verse. Now, the seventh verse talks about what exactly does it take to, still sticking with this example or metaphor of the vase, what exactly does it take through our spiritual practice to totally break this vase of ignorance, of affliction? What does it really take to totally realize and actualize this true nature of the mind? So it reads, at the moment when the Vajra-like Samadhi is able to obliterate the vase, at that very moment, the light burning inside will shine throughout the reaches of all space. So, if we are to totally break this vase of ignorance, this vase of afflictions which covers the luminosity of the lamp inside, the Dharmadatu, then one cannot do without cultivating concentration in meditation. And samadhi herein refers to meditative stabilization born out of concentration. Stability, it uses the word vajra-like. Vajra, thunderbolt, vajra is looked at an object that is stable, not easily broken, so it's an expression of stability. So vajra-like samadhi, vajra-like meditative stabilization, born from concentration. So through training in concentration, through refining our concentration, developing single-pointed concentration, only then can we hope to totally overcome our afflictions, our obscurations, to, in the end, realize and actualize that Dharmadhatu. Yes. Are you a bit chilly under the fan?
Yeah.
Maybe we can turn it off if it's... Maybe a sign you are about to catch a cold. So it's totally up to you how you want to use the facilities that you have.
Okay. That is right. That and the engine knowledge the begin tata tunda.
What stuff do that? Tramotion the jurende aboj raim in the
da. Yeah, the dinalo much that Shamba tem the law purple suchuma, Kwamaraj.
So me and Geshema, we are talking about, she's asking me like, is it well translated, the text? So if I'm being honest, it's tough to find a good translation of this text actually. I was only able to find 2 translations, and both of them maybe are not so good. What's good in one translation maybe is not so good in the other, and in certain passages, certain verses that are good in the other, not so good here. But with Geshema's guidance, maybe we will be able to work through that.
Today, any chance the DJ low, I think answer dinner much share should be jura, and the genius any ninja, they share the jira, and cross the table on the chiclona, and that do restaurant.
So, if there are instances where there is inconsistency in the translation, we will address it right there and then when we come across these passages. But it is important to be engaged in the discussion itself. We can, of course, we can refer to the text itself, but since now we know that maybe the translation is not the most effective translation there is, it is important to engage fully in the discussions if we are to make sense of this text.
That's all. Ni tang anzu jeba dra. Di kan tinzu doji chenti bache. Ta di kala anzu senji rangshin yose wa yimba tengi yusra. Che ji ini che ma yin tang anzu dende yu chun di thoma yin de che she jo ma res la dra. Ani ka na me ka ban ju ma yin. Che zang ya che ya yu ma re pa ga ya ma re do shiteng da. Dende yu chun yin di ka thoma yin de ma yin de shiwa de ma yin ta ba rangshin ji yin zang. Tende 아니 뒤나 건데 녀모 메스 텐데위 코란 치 코란라 아니 뒤데 따다 마오 숨자래 아니 니 코란라 팀이 코란 님모 녀모요 말했으라 다시로 로부기 팀이 뒤에 주로 좀시 와 텐데 제스 아니 토마라데 지두제라 바르라디가라 아니 람람부디 땅아지 지다 람다 디비네 걸어져라 아니 통말라디가라 지네 거체 바발라디가라 람지네 거체 타르라디가라 데비네 거라 텐데 토마 바타 치마 텔라디가라 다 간다 토다 파선데 데코라 라지 치마데 가서 콜 치마 메바 치마 태와지스 슈로기 치마 두데르면서 코란 치마체 마레라.
Now moving along with the text, verse number 8, Now, herein it talks about more specifically that clear light nature of the mind. The Dharmadatu. Now, the Dharmadatu at this point we should understand as referring to the true nature of the mind, the basic quality of consciousness itself as being clear light. This is what Dharmadatu refers to. So the Dharmadatu was never born, nor will it ever cease. At all times it is free of all afflictions at the beginning, middle, and free from stain. So herein it is talking about that basic quality itself, how this basic quality of the mind, being clear light, is not something that is created or born out of causes and conditions. And as such, it is not something that begins to cease when external causes and conditions begins to cease. This quality is enduring. This quality of the mind, this basic quality of the consciousness is enduring. And even when it is surrounded by afflictions, this quality itself is free from afflictions. This quality itself, being light clear, itself is free from afflictions. At the beginning, middle, and end. Now herein, the beginning, middle, and end refers to what we in Buddhist Buddhist spiritual practice call the basis, the path, and the fruit. So at the stage of cultivating your spiritual practice, you start from developing a basis for spiritual practice. Then after developing the basis, foundational basis, you begin to walk the spiritual path itself. That's the practice. And then the end is the result, the realizations that you achieve as a result of your spiritual practice. So even at the stage of cultivating a foundational basis, cultivating a spiritual practice, attaining the results of your spiritual practice, this quality remains as it is. This basic quality of the mind, being light clear, remains as it is, free from afflictions, even though it is surrounded by afflictions from time to time.
지단기 되는 지신의 정말 너도래도라 다들 레다야.
콘솔 당보 셰발에 드즈디시 자나마도 콘솔 셰다 고츠게나 삼상도면다. So we were discussing that maybe if you understand the first few verses and appreciate exactly what it means, what these terms mean, then it's very easy to kind of approach what follows. It's almost repetitive in its nature. When Geshema said this, I suggested maybe many of us actually struggle to make sense of the term consciousness itself first. And
지단기 단단한서 나만 상말라 단간서 남바이나 상제기 누바요래라 상제 누바요래 먼저라디 칸대와시미 힘보요래스 와 칸대와시미 힘보다 안에 지단기 먼저 생지랑 신의서 로부기 팀에 두두 된대기 샘주요래라고라 당한들라 남장한서 시바래더라 시바스인데 그네는 지단기 유는 나중에 시바들 세신리바라고라 세신리바 그게 유응어식 통토도니리도 와 다양 야 먼저 참말로 시바여라 이내야 예시래데 간데질원 지단기 지금 사람게 남샤래 장니 와 된대질에 터투지 단단가도 가르잖아 랑가라저기 시바 참마 뉴몬바단 데데니 시바치자 된대위 뉴몬바 두바 참바 다네 아니 가서나 시바래 데가 예시래데 얘는 또 상지고 고망살래 지당가도 유되네 파세마투에 된대질에도
Now, in this discussion, maybe we look at first how we approach liberation, enlightenment, and how it is related to our consciousness first. So we say in Buddhism that all sentient beings have within them the capacity to achieve liberation, to achieve enlightenment. So in short, it is exactly related to what we talk about, the Tathagata Garbha, or the heart of the Buddha nature. So when we say that all sentient beings have the capacity to achieve enlightenment, achieve liberation, then this is exactly what we mean, that all of us have within ourselves the Buddha nature, the heart of the Buddha nature. We are not able to actualize and realize this because of the afflictions and the obscurations. So now, with that being said, now it is important to relate that to the text itself, Dharmadatu, the basic sphere of reality. So the basic sphere of reality herein, instead of referring to outer phenomena, is referring to the mind itself, the consciousness itself. So the Dharmadhatu that resides in the consciousness itself is exactly this Tadagata Garbha, the basic quality of the consciousness being clear light, luminous in its nature. Now, when we say it is clear light and luminous in its nature, we are saying that its ultimate, absolute, true nature is clear light. It's clear light and luminous. Now, as opposed to this, when we begin to define consciousness as that which is luminous and cognizant, that which is luminous and knowing, then it's referring to the conventional qualities of consciousness. How consciousness is able to, how inner and outer objects appears in the consciousness, and how consciousness is able to know ascertain these objects for itself. This is the conventional nature of consciousness. Now this particular clear light nature, basic quality of clear light nature of consciousness, refers to the ultimate nature of consciousness, which is realized only when you begin to purify the obscurations and afflictions and achieve enlightenment.
저는 그 건조 숨샤오라 산제 거지 치고 견도 건조 숨샤오라 다 산제래 근데라는 진용모비 드바 참아봐 다 상래 제월래 가서나 아니 연대 연수 줘봐 연대 연수 줘봐야 참 제와 근데지라 상 제래 찍도도 되고야라 다 취래래 가서나 지단도 또베 취다는 거 취래 말다 다 되게 숨샤베게 아니 스르다 아니 데스 냥스래니 레니 아니 디줄래 당한서 또바쟁라 라 다든데 농도 취래 지라 다디 냥스래니 아니 토겐데 파베 견들래서 근데 드들라 아니 간서 견든 거죠래 들으실래요?
So for a Buddhist, the three jewels of refuge are very important. And now the three jewels of refuge are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Or in plain terms, the Buddha, the teacher, the Dharma, the teachings, and the Sangha, the spiritual community which actively follows these teachings. So what exactly is a Buddha? So a Buddha is someone who has overcome all the afflictions and obscurations within their mind stream and has perfected all the positive qualities of the mind. So this is what a Buddha is, and this is what we are trying to discuss. Now the Dharma, the teaching, there are teachings of scripture and there are teachings of realizations. Now with regards to your own practice, you begin to approach whichever is applicable to you. Either teachings of scriptures or teachings of realizations. And then similarly, spiritual community, I think we can all relate to and understand what it is.
예 파마다 예 빙자다 예 좀 나다 나이와 나로 진주되어라 다 산제선이 되네만 이제 스피야 탐지 되는데 봐 제메티 보선을 단토니 아니 데 뒤 넘버 탐지더라 저 새로운 탐지 배도 거라 신이 되나 제토니 로다위 되는지더라.
So in short, we need to kind of relate this to our own experience. When we think about how our actions and how our motivations are always shaped by what we call ourselves or what we call ours, me and mine, that's what drives us all the time. Now, as opposed to that, a Buddha has overcome that kind of manner in which we are driven by concerns of me and mine. So a Buddha is someone who puts the benefit, the concerns of others at the front at all times.
ngāzu dīndi rīdā, pēnā ngāla mīgī chī lāgu dūla dī ngā dī nandua, ngāla mīgī chī nāba lāgu, ngāla nānju dī jatā ngē ngāla chī khala urta, mīndu bā chī ngā dōngu dō, ngāla chī lāgu dī ngā sū dī nandua ngā rā, rā, tā tīli pā tēzi gēna ngē gī pīngyā lā chī gī dō, ngāla mā chī ngē gī pāma lā chī, ngē pīngyā lā chī nū bā chī gī dō, chī nāba lāgu dō, mē rā tā ngī dō, kāñjī dī nā lō ngā sū dī rā, tīndē chī ngā sū kāñjī mā bō chī,
So if we look at it carefully, all of our experiences are filtered through and shaped by these conceptions of I and mine. So all our reactions are also prompted by these conceptions of I and mine. So for example, I am happy, I want to be happy, and it is driven by this sense of I. For example, even if there is a certain external situation which inspires a certain reaction from you, but this reaction in itself comes from that conception of the I, because they are hurting me, they are speaking something that I do not particularly appreciate. So it's always coming, all of these experiences of pain, pleasure, suffering, happiness are actually dictated by that conception of the I. And the only manner in which we are able to kind of come out of this is to only begin to relate to our experiences through what we call mine. That's about the extent to which we are able to go. And then it's the same still, because they say something not nice to my friend, to my relatives, to my friends. And that's about the extent to which we begin to open our motivations. Now, as opposed to this, the task of a Buddhist spiritual practitioner at its core is to overcome these kind of conceptions of I and mine.
Can I just clarify quickly something? Did I understand correctly that when you talked about the Dharmadatu, you said the clear light is not influenced by causes and conditions, is that correct? It follows, it's permanent?
Now the discussion gets more complicated. Herein, you've studied Duda a little bit, right? So would you call a quality a compounded phenomena or an uncompounded phenomena?
What do I call a compounded or?
A quality.
A quality itself.
Chunyi le diira, any dujela shagi, dumajela shagi, and tiwatimba. This sewachana ni tagmidala, this sewachagra. Tenganzogi machele, magale, kijadi shigira. Majela na jujin latin the cheba marada, kijadi ta kogora, ko dumaje imba tungira, tagba imba. So uncompounded means? What's the definition of an uncompounded?
It's not
exactly. So the mind itself is a compounded. Consciousness is a functioning thing. Is a compounded phenomena, but the quality is an uncompounded phenomena. The Sheba di Kurang, Sheba Kurang, Mubura. She's uncle Dujeres, Bidabares. In the Sheba Digitan like you chuni thisra, and in Azugi Dumaje, and the Tabala Shagores.
Okay, two. Samala.
Geshema Dawa Dolma.
Oh yeah. Okay. This is a Dolma. This is easier. Not necessarily Geshema.
Because also about chief Tathagata, it's also very high levels for practice individual. One person's practice. It because they lost their show. They lose, right? Their show because Dharma is very large. So I think in this situation, if yes, sama la can take example the ways practice in the and there's another show about the Tathagata inside because if there's practice Tathagata, if not important, they easily lose their show. It's my experience, I think so, because to understand about the Tathagata, I think it's not easy. And normally, if
Drama, you say drama is easier. Dawa, maybe Dawa, she's drama. Okay.
sorry, can share about the way to practice to take a look clearly Tathagata for one person show. For example, Tathagata in Geshema cell, right?
Tadingai chorum badai shira khuvimindura. Inji de shira da khuvim. Da moi thiwa do dirda.
What's Tathagata?
Mare nganzogi da chirda nganzogi da kham de shishi be ningbo la da da. Tende ni chi khoya ra. Tende la ne khodo che de tis kamodares. Tis ne je thobo ge jarwa. Yena da nganzogi samlo chik tanasra. Ngaranso ngai be zimba ji yungro wasta. Nga self la ne chik lagi da. Ti nganzogi ni thorthunasra. Ani nganzogi ni kham de shishi be ningbo la na yora. Nganzogi da Thosamling teni kododo yungor was. Teni Geshema Charangi nyongwa da nyamlen ra. Nyamlen gi junes ra. Ani tedawe tanzi ra. Nganzin jo ra. Ti thorne ni nganzo kamde shishibe ningbo la ji du la gi nyeba jo ra. Ti khande dengore thapshi do khari yores.
Ta kona gi Tathagata mambile da. Tathagata la ne Sanskrit ki leja. Ra. Nganzo pyogi tole tejin sheba. 와 대신됐다 대신들이 가서 배배 나셔라지 셰발라데 다가라 도로 즉 드네도 고다 얘네 대신 셰발라 고라 따다가들래 다단단 가서 얘기 되게 갈라나 가다 가르 제보이나 강이 가르쳐야 되는 가디는 두알래 라 간쟁래 가디는 추디고 배는 얘기 lumbal지래 니 저컬지 니 미릴지 라고들래 삼 가디는 추디다 디기 마스는 가서 강이 치테디도 근데제 다 단단 Pena nganze di tena ngala nyunga khardo tesla ora nganze di yebi ongi
nganze di thornesra nganzo gi kham de shishi be ningbo la jora ngaranzu ranju la yore la de nyeba yora nyeba da de ngi thapshi khare yores
tati susu gi nganze ni ma chaya ra susu ji khadi na nga la de nga chodun zen de ya nga la di nganzo gi pe sunje shu chi ora nga la de la chi tsu bu do sa yamar tima tsu do sa yamar 토야 더 레야 츠부드는 도서야 말. 라. 아니 나래 땅의 현다고. 라. 그 나도 정말 딱 스스 숨져 제대로 시라. 된대지도. 티 나도 딱 스스 쉬우지 인스 삼에 개문다. 라. 된대 되는 스스 초든 전에는 아니 나제래 되디 니나올래 오다. 라. 그래서 봐 더니 나 숨지 참아도 집어인. 나 초든 전에 신들 때스 라시기 마우로 슬레온다. 나다 상마 건데 집어 있어. 대원대바 동예면대바 집어 있어나. 안제 라시 그때 말레로다. 나다 가시 나치 보산다나 나디네디. 셴바 가르치네제 나나나 차나자에 가르치네. 야메다 안슬리다. 팅가도 수수집불러 산다데라. 안제디 쳇라. 딱 나다 개문도 나치부 디자우첨부 개말에. 나도 상마 집바래. 바 동예녀나 냠도 녀토에 딘데 집어 소토에 개참바라. 라. 가르이나 가서 직강이로 있는 냠도 제 미카시 요도다. 직강이 제 코라타나다 들어야지. 미카시기 냠도 만지네. 참말로 바티 강이를 돈내치네 애려라. 제상 가서 가르리에서는 소소기 나시 자와 첨부 저 당하는 양으로지라 산나타이라. 뺑가도 슈지 자와 첨부 쓰되나. 제라 토미 개장 하이는 거다. 라. 디기 데불을 때네. 코라마도 매산여미 남들한시 사고들 콜랑한지 슈치모이 따라. Tera parudula miss kang yeche mejo, rewa jasa mejo, parudula korang chik chomi kejang lajo. Tene chik mitsama yamaji dugola, ane pusto bochang. Ra, nga sama jibare, duna jibare, chena jibare, nyamdo yinsan, na chanyan rotuna, kola midila kangi tigimda. Ra.
So now when we use a term such as Tathagata, I think maybe we appreciate the original meaning, the literal meaning of the term itself. So Tathagata is a Sanskrit term. In Tibetan, we have translated as Deshin Shekpa, which is very close and stays true to the original Sanskrit. So Deshin Shekpa, Shekpa means to transcend, who passes away or transcends. So one who has thus transcended. So it actually, Tathagata refers to the Buddha himself, one who has thus transcended. And so Tathagata Garbha now refers to the Buddha nature, Buddha nature, the heart of the Buddha nature. This is important to appreciate, the difference between Tathagata and Tathagata Garbha. Now, with regards to the question, how exactly can we come to a place of conviction that this Tathagata Garbha, or this Buddha nature resides within us? Now, it is first important to examine our sense of self first. And our sense of self herein, we are talking about how we begin to cherish this self, how we look at this self as something very important. Self, I, me, as something very important. Maybe to some extent this is healthy, but if all our motivations, thoughts, attitudes, behavior is always influenced by this importance that we place on our own self, then maybe it gives into arrogance at points. It gives into attachment at points. It gives into aversion, anger at points. So as such, it is important to look at the manner in which this sense of I, me, shapes our experiences. And look at the manner in which, when we begin to think that this self or I is so important, then the manner in which we begin to cherish, we begin to grasp onto it, saying that I am so important, my concerns are important, what I think is important. And when you begin to develop an attitude like that, you also begin to neglect other people's perspectives, other people's welfare. So as such, you are always running after your own selfish concern all the time. And this puts you at odds with the people that you come to interact with. This creates conflict. This creates unnecessary conflict with others. For example, ask yourself this question. If, as a group, you are facing a problem, and would you appreciate the person who, when it comes to actually work together to overcome this problem, runs the minute the problem presents itself? Nobody would appreciate it. Now exactly we need to look at that attitude. What prompts such a reaction? What causes the person to act out in this manner? And so this all comes from that grasping at the self, which manifests itself in its gross form, a self-cherishing attitude. And now this same person who has a strong self-cherishing attitude, at the same time, even though his actions and behavior suggest otherwise, still desire human companionship, still desire fulfillment, still seeks meaning in relationships. So it's at odds now. Your behaviors and attitude, which is dictated by that self-cherishing attitude, will not afford you all these things that you seek out in a relationship or an interaction at all.
Excuse me, I think it's not exactly. It's not exactly. Because in here the Dharmadhatu were never born. Now we'll never see. At other time, free of all of listen. And at the beginning, middle, and end, free from extent. So it's not from any condition. that's just called the Tathagata.
Hmm?
So we cannot explain about the angry or ego or anything in here.
No, we are not talking about that this Tathagata experiences anger. We're not talking about it.
So number 8, Dharmadatu were never born.
We already talked about this before.
So that's why I just really discuss about the way to practice individual inside one person. How to take a look at what's never born, never die, never see, and free from all affliction. It's not wrong, begin, middle, and end. Freedom from stain. Let's practice individualize. To take a look at, to show Tathagata in one person.
So Geshema is saying that before we can come to perceive or understand what Buddha nature or Tathagata is within ourselves, it is important to examine the sense of self, I, first. Tanda nganzogi kam deshishibi nyingbo la yadi nganzogi kowa da yana tela nyeba madengwa nesra Geshema ki lenja jo dinala nganzogi tanda nganzogi ngala zimba la zimba tela nganzo thangpa yago cheba chego le songi yorwa.
Nganzema.
I think in all the life they also cannot understand Tathagata because it's not easy to can.
Now, maybe I make it clear, okay, what Geshema is trying to say. You are asking the question that how can we become convinced that there is the Buddha nature within us? Yes? Tathagata.
That's right, right? If we say that, now who am I? What am I? Where I am? Many questions like that. Maybe they try to live in this world. The whole life also cannot share about that because I also try to listen many Buddha teaching, but about that I see keep silent. So not easy to take a look who you are. I think you also can practice many lives. One life they guess one experience, they know about it, one more about them. Sure. And many lives.
Nice. What do you mean?
Metsi lagyor.
Life.
Cheba mangbo la gorgi re la jura nganzogi. Kam deshishibi nyingbo la di toya la ra. Cheba mangbo gorgi re. Ta chiwa kari nga khutsu mastan.
Because if they can explain who am I, it's no need to maybe learn more. I'm sorry, but anyway, I think it's not easy to take a look who you are.
And your question?
I think I mean
Yeah, na dirche who I am. Nga khare la jida. Ra ngala cheba chana. Nganzogi kyo mai pa jilo chata de ra. Korang la nga pen ngaro ngal ta de war. Nga tanda dawa duma la re ma to. Nga dawa duma la rashi ki phayi ngol tsu chen jiyo ma. Ra. Ine pugu chunji ji re phama ki tela dawa duma ta sha re. Ta sha di gala ani jila mi chama ko la dawa duma la mi di ko la su de war. Wana ta dawa duma la dir tsaji tang cha da ruba chama re tsaji tang niye yo ma. Ah. Ta khudi lo ra. Leche men rasam.
So Geshema is saying that is an important question to look at what exactly is this I and to ask yourself the question, who is this I, who am I? And to look for this I first and to see if we can find this I.
I heard from the Buddha one teaching. He said that he is for one king, for a king. About when he 3 years old, he also look about the lake. And now he 40 years already, 60 years already. He also look about the lake. So about the looking never change, but the age change. So also one example to show about the Tathagata in himself. So also one method we practice to take a look about the Tathagata, what never die and never born, and stop about the fear and suffering in one person. They not care about the death. But anyway, Thosamling. One may talk about variety Tathagata in one person experience. If not, we cannot understand Tathagata, and easy to lose lose. Because about the who am I, that's the question, even if they're from Bodhidharma. Then he also now the first Buddha in Chinese and Asian traditional. Because of that question, he just go to Buddhism. He just follow Buddhism. So that's a very important question. But I never heard answer about that. because
Maybe we stop here. It's already 15 minutes past. 15 minutes past. We'll pick up the questions in the question and answer session later on. Yeah?
Shall we extend the break a little
Yeah, a little bit. The parsing this during Ratana Digiribus. Maybe we extend it by 5.
Come in, you sang a shell.
Marimark.